Hi, welcome to Hot Topics Live, the show, the podcast. I'm Kia, and I am joined today by my friend Simon from Taxi Chronicles again. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Kier.
How are you,
Nice to be
sweetie?
back. It's nice to
I,
be back. You
I'm
know,
so glad to have you back. What have you been doing since the last time I saw you?
actually, I've been refurbishing with my cousin, of course, my bathroom. So we've been putting a new sink, a new cabinet, and putting in some Arabic showers, and just doing some plumbing work and organising things. So we've got enough storage. Everything's there, but not seen. That's how I like it. Really, less is more.
Oh, I love that too. I love that too. I'm like, I'm a very messy person, but you can't tell because it's stored away most of the time. So, and then when it comes out, then I start to get anxiety and I'm like, okay, I need storage solutions. I need to put this away. And
Mhm.
actually, for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been purging my house. And every time I do a purge, I feel like I have to do another purge because somehow I just accumulate things. So,
Mhm.
anyways, I love that idea that you're remodeling and getting all the clutter
There
put
is
away.
there is a trick to that. If
Yeah?
you if you're going to buy something, you don't buy it and you say, I'm going to buy it in a month and see if I really need it. And
Hmm.
if you can do without it for that month, then you don't really need it.
Hmm. That's a good thought. We had an episode with Estelle, and she teaches people how to simplify their lives through purchasing because she feels like we emotional buy a lot of times. And so you can see that episode on our Facebook page, Hot Topics Live. You just scroll back through the episodes and you will see it, as well as Live. And
Mhm.
last episode that you co-hosted with me was about compassion, the art of compassing with Daniel Sveck. That was a good one.
Yes. You froze for a minute there, but yeah, you're back with us now. But
Oh
yeah, that
no.
was a good one. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties. We'll just see how it rolls and hopefully
Mhm.
it will be fine. So, yeah, that I loved the episode that we did together with Daniel Sveck and the art
Mhm.
of compassing. And
Yeah.
what did you
I
think
remember.
about that
Yeah.
one?
That was great. He was very energetic, flamboyant in the sense of he really came across. He really expressed himself, and I feel I learned quite a few new things, and yeah, it's something that I went away and I felt good. I felt good. I got to ask him questions, and good that what he was doing and he was bringing to the world. In Taxi Chronicles, we say he really shared his gift. His gift
He
is
did
his
that. He did.
knowledge. Yes, yeah, in that
Yeah,
respect.
I love
Mm.
that episode. And if you haven't seen it, you can scroll back through our episodes or you can catch it on YouTube. You just have to type in Hot Topics Live Kia and you'll find my channel. And you can start seeing all of these episodes because they're now being streamed to YouTube as well. So we have an incredible guest today. We are going to talk about hyperbarics. Okay, if you don't know what that is, then stay tuned because you're going to learn all about hyperbarics and how it can be beneficial for you and your health and your family's health and why it's necessary. And we just don't even know about it. So, most people don't know about it. So, I have an incredible naturopathic doctor with me. She's a speaker and she is very proficient in everything to do with hyperbarics. She's the host of Hyperbaric Living with Dr. Masha, and she helps with every type of condition that you can imagine with hyperbarics, from weight loss, from autism, from skin conditions like psoriasis, to post traumatic brain injuries. Like there's so much that can be healed with hyperbarics, and she's going to share that information with us today, Simon.
Okay, that sounds good. Especially the autism thing. I think that's definitely a hashtag. Hashtag autism hyperbaric.
For sure. I mean, it can help so many people. So I wanted to bring her on because a lot of people don't know about this. I didn't know much about it. And so as I have been listening to her podcast again, Hyperbaric Living with Dr. Masha, it's a great show. And she has so many experts on there and they're all talking about what conditions hyperbarics can help and how it helps. So I needed to spread this to everyone that checks out Hot Topics Live. So let's bring her on. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do this.
Hi, Dr. Masha.
Hi, Tia. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Masha.
I am so glad that you are with us today.
Really glad to be here. Really excited.
So tell me, where are you and what time is it now?
Well, I'm in Madrid. Madrid is the capital of Spain, and it's probably 9:15 nighttime, 9:10, something like that.
Mhm. Wow. And where are you, Simon?
I'm in London, and if it's 9:15 in Spain, then it's 8:15 in England, in London.
And I am here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, just north of Portland, Oregon, where it is 12:09 in the afternoon. And so Hot Topics Live is a global show, and you can see how we come together to connect, to share positive energy and love with the world and expertise like yours, Dr. Masha. So I want to ask you, how did you decide to become a naturopath?
Well, that's a long story. Probably 25, about 20 to 25 years ago, I was pretty sick myself. So I decided to go to a doctor and get checked. And I thought it was like a little thing, nothing major. And when I got my results back, I received 10 different medical diagnoses, which was devastating and really scary at the moment because I didn't know anything about medicine. I didn't know how to help myself. So with this diagnosis, some of them, the doctor said, okay, you're going to take this medicine, and this is the side effect it's going to produce. Some of the conditions, I'm sorry, they're not curable, so you're going to live with them all your life, and they're only going to get worse. So when I left, I was crying. I think I cried the whole weekend, and then I actually painted a painting. And I'm not even a painter, you know. Like I took classes when I was a child, but that somehow it helped. And I decided there's got to be another way, and I started searching. So by that, one friend gave me a recommendation, and then I saw a holistic medical doctor. And back then, there were no functional medical doctors. There were just medical doctors, and everything else was sort of undercover. So I saw the doctor. He looked at my blood tests, and he changed my diet. And I was really diligent. I took it really seriously. I was 24, maybe 25 at a time, and I wanted to live, and I wanted to live well. So he said to change my diet. I changed my diet. I came back a month later, and I followed it 100% to the T. He gave me some herbs and supplements. I took some additional tests. It was a long journey. Like I've tried so many different therapies. So probably 2 years later, I looked at the mirror one day and I realized, okay, what's my purpose? What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with this gift of health that I've had at the moment? And I've decided to go back to school and become a naturopathic doctor to help other people experience the gift of healing, the gift of good health, of feeling better. It's amazing. The transformation from being sick to being healthy is absolutely amazing. So that's the story. That's how I became a naturopathic doctor. I thought it was kind of like the end point of the story, but it was just the beginning, of course.
Wow. So because you were sick and you began to slowly get better, you decided to sort of pay it forward. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I was also mesmerized by the beauty of the human body when I realized that it's such a smart machine, if you can call it that way. And if we give it the right fuel and if we put it into right circumstances, it has this innate ability to heal. You just need to find it. It's almost like an investigator job. If you can find, that puzzle, if you can put it together, and the person starts to get better. To me, it's the most rewarding thing in the world.
I definitely have had my share of health issues and have had to find sort of alternative ways of getting them managed. And it is a world of difference when you spend years of your life feeling miserable and then you start to feel better. So I really identify with that. What do you think, Simon?
I'm a bit curious, and I don't want to delve into your personal issues, Dr. Masha, but what was it? Can you give us an idea of what kind of, assuming it's not ladies' issues, what your health was? Because I think the audience could, if they can hear what the actual, or even one or two symptoms were, then that may be able to help them. They think, yeah, this is why I should listen to the rest of the show.
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with autoimmune conditions. I had all sorts of different antibodies. I was making antibodies to my heart. I was making antibodies to my thyroid. I was making it's called antiphospholipid syndrome, basically when the blood starts to clot more than it should. So that's the phospholipids are the main component of the cell membrane. I had all sorts of hormonal imbalances, multiple infections. I was diagnosed with depression, which was no surprise because, with all these conditions. I've had some digestive issues. I think that's, pretty much what it was.
So apart from just the food diet, what else was involved in your remedy and how long did it take?
I'm really curious, just by nature. So I had to try everything, Diet is the foundation. And I was really lucky to meet that doctor because he was not only a doctor, he was also a teacher for me. And he taught me, if you don't change your diet, it doesn't matter what else you're going to do. It's not going to produce much results. So diet is always foundation of health. I took herbs, as I said. I tried homeopathy. I did acupuncture. I did all sorts of different massages. It's called Tiuna. That's a special Chinese massage. So it's sort of like an acupressure, but it's not. What else did I do? Supplements. I'm still taking a lot of supplements. I like to try them. When I hear about the new thing coming out, I'm going to get it. If I think that's something that my body can benefit from, I'm going to get it. I'm going to try it. And if I like the result, I'm going to start prescribing it to my patients. And then I've learned about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which fell really well under the umbrella of natural health and naturopathic medicine.
Before we just move on there, with the food, was it like organic food? Did you start growing some vegetables yourself? Was it fish, meat, keto?
So the doctor himself, he was very much into macrobiotic diet, which is very complex. I don't know if you've heard about it, but basically what it boils down to, you have to spend like 5 hours a day in the kitchen because everything you cook is so complicated. You have to know how to put things together and what goes well with what and how the cooking methods are important. No dairy is allowed, no meat, occasionally white fish. Occasionally, I was eating occasionally eggs, but if you go full speed macrobiotic, eggs are not allowed either. It was tough. But it taught me a lot. It taught me to listen to my body and to see the connection. Okay, I ate this and now I feel this way. Because we're not connected to we don't know how to listen to our bodies. It's almost like the brain lives 2 kilometers or 2 miles away from the rest of the body. So I was really tuned after doing this diet. I did it for a year and a half, and then I felt that maybe the time came and I should start eating meat again. And then it was mostly organic, in season, locally grown. And mind you, that was more than 20 years ago. So back then, finding organic food was not easy. Like I had to drive. I lived in Toronto at the time, so I had to drive all around Toronto to find organic fruits and vegetables. But it paid off. It definitely paid off. I stick with the diet. It's not even a diet. I don't call it a diet. It's a lifestyle. You just stick with it. It becomes part of your life, and there's no way I'm going back. And when my patients come to me, this is the first thing I teach them, is to change their diet, to treat food as medicine, because food is medicine. Every day we taking medicine by eating, and we choose, whether I'm gonna eat this good vegetable, like a leafy green vegetable that's going to give me magnesium and it's going to support my liver, or I'm going to opt for fast food or processed food that's going to damage my body, damage my cells. And we might not see the effects of that damage right away, but with years we'll see it, and we can trace it back to the way we eat.
Sorry, Kate, go on.
So I guess what I'm getting so far is the basis of healing is diet.
Absolutely.
And we need to be conscious about what we're eating and how our body responds to it. Because I definitely feel like that's been a huge part of my recovery process, or managing the illnesses I lived with since I was in the military. And when I left as a disabled vet because of the collection of illnesses that I acquired while serving. And it took many years for me to figure out how to manage them. But diet also played a huge role in that. And being able to determine this is how I feel after I eat this food was huge. Right. And so mindful, I guess that's what we call it. Mindful eating is critical. What do you think about that, Dr. Masha?
No, that's crucial. Absolutely. I should also say that there's no right or wrong diet, because some people say they swear by ketogenic diet, others say it's paleo. There are other people who say, no, it should be plant-based. I should say it's individual. And it takes time to figure out what diet works best for you. But when you start listening to your body, when you start observing the reactions that your body gives you after eating certain foods, you can figure it out.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, Dr. Masha, because when I was in the military, there's a guy who's trained us, who's ex-special forces, and he was explaining, he worked with the Mujahideen back in the 70s, and he's explaining that there's a section of the military where they talk about nutrition. This is in the 70s, and they were saying you've got to consider the food that you eat today, you have to realize what your ancestors were eating, and because your ancestors, obviously, being multicultural, we come from different parts of the world. So if you start eating another person's kind of food, that may not sit well with your body as somebody else's food was. So all those things have to be taken into consideration as well. So it's very interesting what you're having to say there.
Yeah, it's I've read it. I don't know if I particularly agree with it, because for example, I was born in Russia. I don't feel well after I eat Russian food.
Yeah, but that's the point. No, that's the point though, because you said you're Spanish.
No, I'm Russian.
Oh, you're Russian?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's I was born in Russia, so I don't like Russian food. I'm sorry for all the Russian listeners.
I know they have potatoes. I've lived on a ship with them. I know Russian potatoes for everything.
Yeah, it's a lot of potatoes, a lot of mayo, a lot of potatoes, stuff like that. But there are studies when they looked at, for example, Chinese population when they started immigrating to the United States, and of course they were changing their diet, or younger generation was changing their diet. All of a sudden they were getting really sick, and all kinds of metabolic diseases and stuff like that, which they were attributing to a standard American diet, which was very different from what they were eating back in China, or what their ancestors were eating back in China. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely something to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I saw a documentary about, is it Hawaii, one of those islands there, where since America has came there, their health is so abysmal. They've all become really obese. They've all come, and before they had a very fruits, tropical fruits from the palm trees, and they had a high fish, so I think it's high protein and things like that, and they're very big and strong. And now it's just gone totally the opposite, and the government wants to obviously try to weed people off the American food, but politics has, kind of ended up different. But I would agree, really.
Yeah, standard American diet, it's also about the comfort of it, because it's easy. If you have a frozen dinner and you just take it into microwave, it takes literally 5 minutes, and you have warm food. Whereas if you need to cook your food, it's going to take you an hour or 40 minutes. So of course it's more laborsome. But then again, we need to consider that we are what we eat and what we absorb. So it's important, if you want to feel good tomorrow, you better spend that 40, 30 minutes and cook your dinner today.
I don't use microwaves. I just use the oven to heat food up. I have that patience. I put the food in the oven, and I go and have a shower, do some exercise. By the time I come out, it's ready. Sorry, kid.
It's okay. So what do you think about, the family unit, right? So if our bodies require different foods, right? Typically, at least here in the United States, when I make dinner for my kids, I make the same thing, or I used to make the same thing for everyone. So what would you say to that? For example, now my littlest, he has to have a sort of different diet because he has a lot of food allergies. So when I cook for my kids, I cook not exactly 2 different meals, but almost 2 different meals. Do you think that would be a better way of cooking? Like you cook individually for per person in the family, or this traditional way of just sort of making a dish and everyone eats that?
I think traditional way is better. I definitely think traditional way is better. There is in Chinese there is a saying I don't know how it would be in Chinese, but if you translate it to English, it says one pot meal. So basically you cook everything in one pot and then everybody's sharing the meal. And that's the healthiest thing you can get. Why? Because all the flavors are being blended. And it's just, becomes a lot of things are pre-digested. So you put meat in there, or if you don't eat meat, you can put fish, or maybe some plant source of protein, vegetables, and maybe some grains, and it becomes served like a stew or soup. That would be great. The other side of the story is that kids are not used to that kind of food. I have a 12-year-old. If I give her something like that, I don't know what she's going to say. I don't know if she's going to eat that. So in my household, I cook, she has her own food, and I want to make sure that she eats vegetables. So I have to get creative with that. And then I cook something else for myself and for my husband. And, so it's always, always different kind of food. Do you want that? I don't know. Maybe it's not the right thing to do, but that's how it is in my household.
Would you say that's more down to how you bring up your children?
Sorry, can you say it again?
Would you say that's down to more how you bring up your children? Do you see what I mean?
Maybe, yeah, or what you used to yourself.
Yeah.
Things have changed so much. I mean, women work. If you look at 100 years ago, women were not working. They were staying home and they were cooking, so maybe they had more opportunity, to make different meals. We live in this absolutely different world. I mean, maybe we want to go back and be like our ancestors. The question is it even possible at this point? So we have to adjust to the circumstances and do our best in the situation that we're in. I mean, if you're a busy mom and, hockey mom who takes her kids to school, then to hockey or whatever extracurricular activity they're doing, and you need to do the laundry, and you have so many responsibilities. I mean, you can't, but you do the best that you can. You cook on Sundays, you freeze, you become creative with it.
Did you start to incorporate exercise in this whole remedy?
So in the beginning, I couldn't. At the beginning,
Okay.
I couldn't exercise. It was way too much for my body. I had chronic fatigue. There were times when I would just fall asleep on my desk, like putting head on my desk at work. So exercise was out of the question. I think probably a year down the road, I was able to start exercising. I love movement. So again, if somebody is really sick, they should consult with their doctor. We know that there are things that are good for us, like exercise. But if somebody is sick and has a medical condition, I always advise to consult their practitioner and ask them, is it a good idea for me to exercise at the moment? And if it is, what kind of exercise is good for me? If it's too intensive, it could be counterproductive.
Mm-hmm. Mm. What's your first port of call now if you feel poorly? Do you go to your local GP, your general practitioner, what we call here in London, or do you go to your specialist, Hyperbaric?
Hyperbaric. Well, it really depends. If I'm not feeling well, I'm probably going to go to my GP and get the tests done to figure out what's going on with me. Mm-hmm. And then once I have the diagnosis, I can think, okay, how am I going to treat this condition? What can I do for myself so I feel better? Because GPs, we know that when I know the whole system, the NHS in England, doctors are overworked, underpaid. It's just terrible. I have a lot of patients from England, so I've heard stories. And we can't blame doctors. They have like 5 minutes to see every patient, make a decision, give them something so they start feeling better, and then off to see the next patient. Whereas naturopathic doctor has the luxury to spend an hour with a patient and really listen to their story and find out what's the root cause, what's going on with this patient, why they're feeling the way they feel. And when we find the root cause, then we can give them the right treatment. And going to hyperbaric oxygen therapy, because I'm sure everybody is anxious to learn what it is.
Yes.
That's the name of the show. So hyperbaric oxygen therapy is oxygen under pressure. And oxygen is a nutrient, and I want everybody to remember that because we're going to come back to that. How do we get under pressure? When you dive, you go under pressure. At the sea level, we're at 1 atmospheric pressure, right? So we're at like ground zero. When we go up on a plane, the pressure goes down. When we go down, when we dive, the pressure goes up. Another way to go under pressure is to get into hyperbaric chamber, which is a vessel you get in. It looks like a spaceship sometimes, like a small spaceship. You get in, it's closed, and then it gets pumped with air or pure oxygen. And eventually it goes under pressure. And that's where the magic happens.
So you get completely closed in, like your whole body.
Yep.
And then the air just comes in.
And the air just comes in.
And you just breathe normally while you're in there?
You just breathe normally. You don't feel any different. Maybe when the pressure is changing, because it takes time to pressurize the chamber and depressurize the chamber, maybe you feel a little different at that particular moment. Like you feel almost like when the plane's going down. You know, the feeling, maybe like a little bit popping in the ears and that feeling. I mean, if you've been on a plane, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. That's the feeling when we're pressurizing or depressurizing the chamber. But other than that, once the pressure is up, you don't feel anything different. You can just lay down and relax. And if the chamber is big enough, you can sit down or maybe sleep is the best idea. It's very relaxing.
How long are you in there for? Sorry.
Same question. Exactly.
Same question. So it really depends on the protocol that your doctor has, but normally sessions are from 60 minutes to 90 minutes.
So sleeping is wise.
Sleeping is amazing. When you get out, you feel as if you've slept for 8 hours.
Wow.
Is this something that somebody can buy a chamber, or is it something they have to go to a specialist?
There are different kinds of chambers. There are chambers that are only approved for hospital use, and so there are different indications for which you can use a hyperbaric chamber. The more severe the condition, the higher you would need probably a higher pressure. Not exactly, but let's put it in rough terms like that. So with severe condition like food gangrene in diabetic patients, you would need to go to a hospital. Now, there are other kinds of chambers which don't go up to a very high pressure, and you can put those chambers that are approved for home use. You can put them at home and just dive every day at your convenience.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wow, that's incredible.
So the main benefit, the main idea behind hyperbaric chamber is to increase the amount of oxygen. And if we go back to school and our physics class, and we'll remember that there's law of physics that says that under pressure, gas is dissolved in liquid. So this is exactly what happens in our body when we go under pressure. Oxygen, which is gas, right? We're breathing oxygen, gets dissolved in liquid, in plasma. And all of a sudden, plasma is saturated with oxygen. And oxygen gets to cells and tissues in this plasma. Normally, oxygen is being transported by something that's called hemoglobin. You've heard about it, your doctor's measuring it. The problem is that under normal conditions, hemoglobin is probably 97% saturated. You've heard about oxygen saturation before?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so hemoglobin is 97% saturated. So even if we breathe extra oxygen, we can't get more oxygen because there's not enough hemoglobin. It's already 97% saturated. So maybe another 3%. It has to bind to hemoglobin to get transported. When the oxygen gets dissolved in plasma, it doesn't need hemoglobin anymore. It's just there, and it goes. If there was an injury and the capillary bed is broken, so the blood supply is cut to the injury, oxygen cannot get there, and we need oxygen to get there for healing to occur. Healing doesn't happen without oxygen. We can't live without oxygen. Listen, we can live without water. What is it? 3 to 7 days, maybe. We can live without food for more than 40 days.
It's 3 days without water, 7 days without food. Yeah.
I think you can, yeah, but what about the fasts? People are fasting much longer than 7 days. You can do more.
That's when you go into a spiritual state. That kind of puts a different aspect on it.
Yeah. So, yeah, but without oxygen, what is it, 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes?
They say the average person can hold their breath for 1.5 minutes. I tried in the swimming pool about 5 times yesterday, and I could only just get to 1 minute. So that says something about my health right now. Yeah.
Try it, hold your breath, and you can't. The survival instinct kicks in, and you start breathing again. We need oxygen. It's nutrient. We need it for so many things. But first and foremost, it's the energy production. And we need energy to speak, to move our hands, for all the functions that are happening in our body every second. We need energy. And to produce this energy, we need oxygen.
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I was thinking the kind of sicknesses this would be really good for is like Alzheimer's, because from my understanding, Alzheimer's, it's restricting oxygen to the brain. I'm not a doctor, of course. So if you pump your whole body in a capsule full of oxygen, you're less likely to deteriorate as fast in time, I would have thought.
Hyperbaric oxygen therapy actually helps Alzheimer's patients, and it helps in dementia, but not because in Alzheimer's you don't get enough oxygen. There's another mechanism behind it, but it is very helpful. And in fact, indeed, it's very helpful for anything that has to do with brain health. Our brain needs a lot of oxygen. It's amazing for patients who've had stroke and for stroke rehabilitation, because all of a sudden we're giving brain back the oxygen that it needs, and it starts. When I said at the beginning of this innate ability to heal, it doesn't matter which therapy you take, whether it's nutritional therapy, it's acupuncture, or laser therapy, or hyperbaric oxygen. Once the body gets what it needs, it will start to repair itself, and it needs oxygen for that.
So far we've got strokes, and we've got Alzheimer's. Thank you. Dementia. What other key? Dementia. What other key elements is this good for?
There are many indications. I should say it's not a magic pill. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do hyperbaric oxygen therapy and it's going to cure all the malaise. It's not like that. I mean, there's nothing like that. We have to accept that. But it's really good for many things. Anything that has to do with nervous system. So I mentioned stroke. It's traumatic brain injury, concussions, and post-concussion syndrome. And Kia, you probably know a lot about it because that's a very common thing among veterans, especially those who were deployed. Yes. And it's a silent killer, so to say, because something that's called operator syndrome. People don't know what they're suffering from, and it's a personality change, and it's a miserable life. And once we give them their movies that were done about it, once we give them what their body needs, which in this case is hyperbaric oxygen, they get better. What else? Cerebral palsy. Also anything where initially there was lack of oxygen. Let's say a baby that's had a birth trauma because of hypoxia, which is lack of oxygen, will greatly benefit from hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Athletes, it's really huge. I don't know if you've seen it in the news because it's great for recovery and performance and recovery from injury and injury prevention. What else? There are many. Just maybe ask me, give me a condition.
What about aging?
Aging, yeah. Aging.
That's my question. Because I think that, so everything that I've been learning from listening to your podcast, as I said earlier, Hyperbaric Living with Dr. Masha, I've learned that there are so many ways that hyperbarics is useful. So like, I just can't get my mind around going into this unit and just chilling out in there for 60 to 90 minutes can be so impactful for the way you feel. But I keep hearing it on your episodes for all different types of things. So my curiosity is for self-care, and anti-aging is on a lot of people's minds, men and women these days, at least in my age group. So what do you think about that?
And let's start with the fact that self-care is extremely important because we sort of conditioned to take care of everybody else, and we're being the last person to take care of. But if you don't take care of yourself, you are not in the resource to take care of others. So self-care is super important, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy is a part of self-care routine. Now, when it gets to aging is tricky. Some say that aging is a disease, and we can prevent. If we can prevent a disease, we can prevent aging. I don't know if I agree, but we age. We age, and I mean, you can't stop time, and you can't stop aging, but you can change how you age, and I think that's important. Let's talk about health span. We know what is lifespan, right? The length of our life, but there's also something that's called health span. Is how long will we stay healthy, and that's important, right? Because we want to age. When we age, we want to be healthy. We want to be active. We want to be happy, in a good mood, productive, and we don't want to burden those around us. I think this thought also comes a lot to our minds once we realize that we're aging. That happens maybe after 40, my guess, right? Before 40, I think we think we're immortal in a way. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Aging.
I don't know. I mean, so when I turned 25, I started really paying attention to like my skincare routine and all of those things. So for me, I think I've been more aware and taking precautions really early. One of the things I learned in the Navy was prevention is the best medicine. It's been a mantra that's been in my mind since those days, those early days of my 20s. So I was always of the mind frame of how can I prevent this? So actually, it's been on the forefront of my mind probably since I turned 25, because I felt like I'm already 25. I'm getting old, which looking back, I was still a baby, right? We know that. But it seems like every 5-year interval, I was like, oh my God, I'm 30. Now I'm old, right? And then so forth until now. And now I still realize, hey, people think I'm old, but I feel really young.
And you look young, maybe because you started to take precautions early.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I realized that I'm aging when I turned 40. I think before 40, I wasn't realizing that the time was actually passing by.
Did it blindside you, Dr.
Yeah.
Masha? Like, holy crap, I'm 40.
But now I think, yeah.
As from a man's point of view, I'd say I just look at it like I'm 45 now. It's the grey hairs. When the grey hairs start to come, you go, "Whoa, what's going on? No, not yet. Let's talk about this." Kind of thing. And then it's agility. It's like you try to do things that you used to do. You're like, oh, you're making this noise. Why am I making that noise? Oh no! Old man's coming in. He's coming in. Oh, that's the things. Yeah.
That's where the hyperbaric oxygen comes in.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, when all of a sudden you realize I can't do what I could do 5 years ago, or I still can do it, but it takes up a lot more effort. And that's what can be changed by not only hyperbaric oxygen. I mean, there are many anti-aging therapies, and I think they work the best when they're done synergistically, when they're done together. But hyperbaric oxygen is definitely one of them. There was a big study that was done last year in Israel, when there are a couple of ways to measure how your cells age. So they did the measurements. I don't want to become too technical. So they measured something that's called telomeres. And when they get shorter, it means we're aging. And they were able to make them longer as opposed to get them shorter. So they were able to get them longer to reverse aging with the use of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And that was a revolutionary study. Everybody's quoting it because there are not too many studies that show that something has an anti-aging effect. I think the only other thing that can do that is fasting. That's been proven to have the same anti-aging effect.
Oh, so the less you eat, the longer you live, or the better you look. Okay, that's interesting. That's what I'm going to take away for today. Eat less.
Eat less, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Especially once you cross. For me, it's always that line, the 40, maybe because I haven't crossed the 50, I don't know, myself, and I always rely on my personal experience. But once you cross the 40, you should definitely start thinking about not overeating. I shouldn't say eating less, but stop overeating. Especially before bed, make sure 3 hours before bed you're not eating anything, and make sure there's at least 12 hours before your evening meal and your morning meal. And that's a good strategy.
What's the routine that one person must do or even consider before they go and do this whole session? Like, should they not eat like a training session? You don't eat 2 hours before you exercise. What's the routine?
So there's no special routine, and everybody will react differently. Some people will feel really relaxed after the hyperbaric treatment, and others will feel really energized. It's individual. So you do the first treatment, and you look how your body responds. And if you're really relaxed, maybe schedule your treatments closer to evening. And if you're super energized, do them in the morning or lunchtime if you can. It does lower the blood sugar a little bit. So we should be cautious with patients who have diabetes, especially if they're on insulin. But their doctor would know, and he would or she would tell them how to time their hyperbaric treatments. But other than that, there's certain contraindications to going into hyperbaric chamber. For example, something like a collapsed lung, which is a life-threatening condition, and the person would be in the hospital. So they probably wouldn't be going into hyperbaric chamber anyways. But also an ear trauma or sinusitis. If somebody is really congested, they would probably feel quite uncomfortable in the hyperbaric chamber. The same way on the plane. If you go on a plane and you're already congested, your ear's going to hurt. So it's the same idea. Somebody has an epilepsy, we want them to be monitored by their doctor. But other than that, pregnant women, if they haven't used hyperbaric chamber before, so, things like that. But other than that, there are not too many contraindications, and you shouldn't really be prepared. Just make sure you have enough time. You're not stressed, and you're not stressed that you need to run somewhere and have to go somewhere. Go in, relax.
But prior, would you say it's best not to eat prior to going in there? Because people say when you've eaten, your body's spending a lot of the blood oxygen trying to digest the food, rather than if you're going to chamber, then you want to be kind of empty, relaxed.
Biohackers, people who want to hack their biology and who really want to take their health to, have you heard the term biohacking? Take their health to like a top level. They might do it fasting, but for a regular person like you and I, it doesn't really matter. If you've had a really heavy dinner, for example, and you go into hyperbaric chamber and you're laying down, for people who have heartburn, it might be a problem, or some digestive issues, or esophagus sphincter problems. But other than that, I don't see a problem eating. You should go to bathroom, make sure you empty your urinary bladder, because you can't get out for an hour. So things like that. Maybe take a book with you. You can read it there. Well, depending. If it's just a regular mild pressure chamber that is not pressurized with oxygen, you can take book, you can take your laptop, you can take your phone. I don't usually advise, because I want people to relax in there, but if they want to, they could. I had a teenage girl, a patient. She was having migraines, which were due to her birth trauma. Like, it was a really difficult birth. So anyways, she was, I think, 14 when she started the treatments. She would draw inside the chamber. She was really into drawing, and but with all her studies, she never had time. She would take pencils and paper, and I have a couple of her drawings in my office.
That's lovely. So I have questions about more things that it's beneficial for. So maybe I can just ask, and you can say yes or no, and then you can pick whichever one you want to talk more about. So what about weight loss?
It's been shown in the studies to assist with weight loss. I haven't used it in my clinic specifically for weight loss.
Okay. What about, now I remember from your first episode with skin issues. So skin issues, yes. For your podcast. Yes. So like psoriasis and eczema and things of that nature?
Psoriasis more than eczema. I'll explain why. Psoriasis is an autoimmune disease, and hyperbaric oxygen is really good for autoimmune diseases because it lowers the inflammation. The level of inflammation in the body. So it's good for psoriasis, definitely.
And what about sort of musculoskeletal or muscular injuries, like an athlete would get? Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing, all these stories where an athlete would get injured and they would be given, let's say, 8 weeks to recover. And for professional athletes, it could be devastating. 8 weeks is too long of a time. So with the use of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, we can shorten this 8 weeks to 4 weeks. Everything this is actually how hyperbarics was discovered, because initially somebody made an observation that people who were building bridges underwater, so they were diving a lot, everything would heal really fast on them, and they would look younger than those who weren't doing the job.
Wow.
And they started to investigate, and that's how they came up with the concept of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And then they constructed the first chambers, which were actually like wooden sealed things that they would put underwater. Isn't that amazing? That's like 200 to 300 years ago. So yes, injuries, amazing. Even if the injuries happened, even if it's an old injury, it doesn't matter. Yes, it will take a longer time to recover, definitely, than if it's just a recent injury, but it's still very helpful. And we have other therapies to support hyperbarics, like red light therapy, laser, PMFs, different therapies that go together and make hyperbarics even more effective, or hyperbarics makes this therapies even more effective.
Wow, that's really incredible. So you mentioned earlier about pregnant women going into the chamber, but what about postpartum, like after you've had your baby? Because it's not quite an injury, but kind of, right? So would that be helpful for helping you heal after childbirth?
I suppose so. I suppose so. Absolutely. Yeah.
Incredible. That is amazing.
With pregnant women, we just want to be cautious. So if a woman was using a hyperbaric chamber before she got pregnant, there's no contraindication for her, not to use it during her pregnancy. There are many reports of women who couldn't get pregnant. They were doing hyperbarics for something else, and then they would get pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
There's studies as well. There are more studies that need to be done because, unfortunately, infertility is a big issue. But for somebody like that who was using hyperbarics before they got pregnant, they can continue using it under medical supervision, of course. So they should always, I think it's a good idea to consult with your doctor anyways about everything that you do. Just ask them, okay, is it a good idea that I do that? And, hear what they have to say. And maybe they don't know anything about it. So show them the research. Become a responsible patient.
You spoke about the diving, but I assume it hasn't been around since diving. There's a break. How long has this whole system been around? Do you know?
So we say it dates back like 200-300 years ago, but I think the most of the research has been done in the last 20-30 years. It hasn't been used a lot. It's been used a lot more in countries like Germany, Russia, and China. And now I think United States is doing a lot of research. Israel is doing a lot of research, especially last 5 years. And with COVID, because it's really helpful with COVID and post-COVID, it's gaining not popularity, but I should say it's in the news. It's always in the news. People are talking about it.
Oh, that gives me a question. I was just reading an article about people who had experienced COVID, and they're discovering that some people are having long-term effects, like difficulties with breathing and things of that nature. Is this why it's maybe gaining more exposure and more use post-COVID?
I think initially because when COVID just happened, I mean, the medical community, we didn't know how to treat it. We didn't know what it was, and we didn't know what it's going to do to the body. And especially, I think people who got sick first, it was more difficult for them because medical practitioners couldn't help them much. So then they looked at their test results, they looked at how these patients appeared, and somebody came up with an idea: let's put them into hyperbaric chamber because this will help. Because if the oxygen saturation is low, and that's what's happening with COVID patients, and we'll put them into hyperbaric chamber and dissolve this oxygen in plasma and give them this oxygen, they will recover faster. And this is what was happening, right? So it became a therapy for COVID wherever it was available, because it's not available everywhere, right? Not like a GP clinic probably wouldn't have a hyperbaric chamber. Now with long COVID, I guess again, just trying different things and different therapies, and looking at how hyperbaric oxygen therapy can help. It can lower the inflammation. We also know that with COVID, especially severe end-stage COVID, what happens, there's a lot of inflammation in the body, something that's called cytokine storm. And we also know from the studies that hyperbaric oxygen therapy can lower that inflammation. So it is helpful. It is helpful for chronic fatigue syndrome, which is somewhat in some ways similar to long COVID. Not exactly the same thing, but it's also oftentimes a consequence of a viral or bacterial disease. I'm talking about chronic fatigue. So if it's helpful with that, let's try it with long COVID and see if we get good results. I know in England, at least 2 million people have long COVID, long haulers. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot.
And hyperbaric oxygen is quite popular for that in England. I have several colleagues who are using it for long COVID patients.
Wow, that's incredible. And I noticed again from your podcast that it is effective for things like Lyme disease and autism, and just incredible amount of uses hyperbarics have.
If you think about it, it's almost like, you almost want to say, wow, it cures everything. Well, it doesn't, but it's helpful in a lot of conditions. It's famous in the community of autistic spectrum disorder that it would be helpful. Not every kid, not every child with autism would benefit, but if this child would benefit, they would see really good results.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. And speaking of your podcast, I want to talk about that a little bit. What can we expect from your podcast? I mean, I know, but what can everybody else expect?
So next week, we have a new feature. It's going to be called Patient Insight Series. And I think it's going to be very interesting because you could actually listen to patient experience. It's short interviews. I have already them recorded, so I can tell you, I can give you a teaser. There's going to be a lot of mothers with kids with autistic spectrum. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Because when a child gets sick, all of a sudden the whole world crushes, and you start looking for answers. And many times medicine cannot give an answer. So you go to fellow parents, fellow mothers, and you ask them, have you had something similar? And what did you do with that? And that's how most of the mothers learn about hyperbarics. And then they try. And then it's just amazing to listen, to hear their stories, how a child was not verbal and they couldn't communicate and they couldn't even hold the spoon. And then after just 2 sessions in hyperbarics, it took the spoon and it started eating. And for a mother with a child with disability, this is huge. This is a huge milestone. It's amazing. And being able to look at your child's eyes and see a response first time in 2 or 3 years. I mean, yeah, it's very touching.
That is so touching. And you know what it reminded me of? I had an episode of Hot Topics Live, I think at the beginning of the year, with a mother whose daughter has severe seizures. And she had a lot of just trauma with trying to manage this since her daughter was born. And I wonder, would hyperbarics be something beneficial for this?
With seizures, we actually need to monitor the child if they're using hyperbarics, because what it can do, it can produce, because oxygen, too much oxygen can actually produce seizures. So I wouldn't recommend, but I would definitely recommend consulting with a practitioner and asking them, somebody who is knowledgeable in hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and asking them, would it be something that my child would benefit from? But, from the beginning, probably not. So going back to the podcast, beside them, I just wanted to add, beside them, patient experience, I also interview a lot of experts in the field, doctors who dedicated their lives to studying hyperbaric oxygen therapy and how it can help health, and how it can help patients to become healthier. It's quite interesting. I find it interesting. I find it amazing, because I love that transformation from being sick to being healthy, and hyperbarics can do it really fast for you.
That's amazing.
Excuse me. As a podcaster, for yourself, that is, what would you say you've learned in the hyperbaric industry that you wish you knew when you had started?
Not to be afraid of it, because at the beginning I was quite cautious. I was afraid. I'm like, it took me maybe a couple of days to even get inside the chamber. And then I've had a lot of patients at the time who would benefit from hyperbaric oxygen therapy, but I was cautious. So I just wanted to try with only with approved indications. I would study the literature, where I think maybe if I was a little bit, but I that's my personality, so I don't know if that could be changed. But I would definitely, a wider use, because there is a big list of indications that it could be used for. And we should not be afraid to use hyperbarics. It should never be the last resort. It should be the first choice therapy.
Okay, that's good.
Wow.
Sorry. You kind of answered my question there. You said it shouldn't be the last, it should be the first. I'll just hand over to Kia there.
Okay, well, I have a question. How can the average person who just wants to improve their health, maybe they don't have a severe illness or anything, how could this be incorporated in their self-care maintenance plan? And why should we do it now?
Great question, Kia, because I think our whole life in the last couple of years is about self-care and health optimization. And this is what universe is teaching us at the moment, because we really need to take care of ourselves. We really need to optimize our health. When we meet with the virus, at least we're in condition to fight it. Not only the virus, but for everything else. I mean, just to avoid all kinds of chronic disease. And hyperbarics can be a big part of wellness routine. Just like anything else, like exercise, like taking your supplements, like watching your diet and making sure that you sleep at least 7 hours at night. Same way with hyperbarics. There are different protocols. So if somebody has a chamber at home, and mild chambers are approved for home use. So if somebody has a chamber at home, they can probably use it every day. Just, put it in your schedule that you spend an hour in a chamber. And if not, different doctors are doing it differently. Some recommend just like one session a week, or maybe a set of 30 sessions and then maintenance once a week, or like twice a month, something like that. So you find the way that works for you, because it's got to work in terms of time and finances and, commute and whatnot. But it's a tool, and it's out there, and it's a shame not to use it when it's available. So inquire at your community clinic, at your doctor, if they have a hyperbaric chamber. Try it and see how you feel.
Amazing. And so we just go and talk to our doctor and see where the closest center would be to us. And then what are some of the costs involved with having this kind of treatment?
I'm in Europe, so obviously the costs are different in Europe than they would be in the States. I think in the States they would run on average at $100, maybe a little less, a little more, but then it also depends. There are some doctors, when they specialize in a certain condition, they would have like a sliding scale for kids with an autistic spectrum. You really need to inquire. And here in Europe, they run from 50 euros and up. It really depends on the clinic more than, because the treatment is the same. If you have a clinic in a really posh area, then the treatment's going to be more expensive, I guess. And, if it's just a regular clinic, but it's the same treatment. I mean, it's the same oxygen being dissolved in your blood.
So
Sorry,
one question, what do we do if we want to come to your clinic? Because you have a clinic, right? We can come see you.
I'm in Madrid, Kia. Hop on a
Don't doubt me. I love to travel. Let them allow me to come somewhere. I still can't go anywhere. But when I can, don't tempt me.
Yeah, Europe doesn't have restrictions. I think all you need is a PCR test and you can come to Europe. Not a problem. Yeah, so you can find me on my website. It's www.drmasha.com. Or on Instagram, it's Dr. Masha Makiva. Facebook, I'm always there. I answer questions. I actually take my time because I feel that part of being a doctor is education. So I like to educate, and if people need information, especially on hyperbarics, I'm really happy to direct them to resources, to studies, to articles, so they can read and see if that therapy is something that they want to try.
Incredible.
Just a couple of questions from me. Legally, as in, if I'm going to find one of these places, should there be a certificate on the wall of the person saying that they're officially a doctor, or is it, if somebody knows, I can just go and have a session? What's the circumstances?
It depends on the country, on the legislation. I wouldn't say for the States because I don't know. If you
I'm in
really
London.
if you need a doctor, you need a nurse. It depends on the pressure that the hyperbaric chamber is using. So if you go to a place that has a chamber that is approved for home use, they would probably have a doctor on staff. And they would probably have an initial assessment with you just to make sure that you fit for hyperbaric session. But then the actual session would perform a hyperbaric technician, not a doctor. You don't need a doctor to supervise the session. You need a hyperbaric technician who knows everything about the safety and how to do it. Okay.
And are these chambers lock up? Because obviously, if it's a chamber, you're sealed inside. Is it accessible from inside, or you lock it from the outside? What's the situation?
So there are different kinds of chambers. Some are lockable from the outside, but there are also chambers, for example, the one that I use, you can open it from inside. You have to depressurize it first. That really helps with people who have claustrophobia, because once you know that you have control over it and you can open it, it doesn't feel claustrophobic anymore.
And do you have to get in the chamber like just in your underwear, or is it just your normal clothes? What's the situation?
Again, it depends. It depends on the oxygen. If the if the chamber is pressurized with oxygen, that can be only done at the hospital setting or like a medical clinic setting. Then you have to get in like a special medical clothing, making sure you don't have anything with you. You can't use any cream or any perfume because it's flammable and it's oxygen, and oxygen is flammable.
Yeah. But if
it's pressurized with just ambient air and it's a mild pressure, you can get in like this, no problem. There's no, there's not more oxygen in there than in the ambient air. It's not the oxygen, it's the pressure that increases the amount of oxygen in the blood. So it depends. But I'm sure when you go to the clinic, they would know. They should know. But you can ask them these questions.
I have one more question before we wrap it up, because we are at an hour and 9 minutes. I told you it would fly by. So my question is, if I, for example, lots of people build like hot tubs in their homes and saunas. If I wanted to build in a hyperbaric chamber, what would something like that cost to just have one I could have in my home?
Yeah, that's an excellent observation, because we sometimes would say that, it was all about jacuzzi. Everybody would get jacuzzi in their home. Then it was a sauna. And now maybe we're getting into the era of hyperbaric chambers,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to install one. Like, you don't need a lot of space. You only need to plug it into the electrical outlet. So it's quite easy. Now, in terms of cost, it really varies, but it's several thousand, and it depends on the make and the model, and it can go up to 20 and 30,000.
Wow.
So it starts, it's a huge range, basically depending on the quality. It's like a car. If you ask, okay, how much does it cost to get a car? You can get a car for a couple of thousand, but you can also get a car for 200,000. So it depends on the budget. But with hyperbaric chamber, it's a little narrower. But I should say from maybe 6,000 or 7,000 up to 30, depending on the model.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, because you could spend the money on a really fancy car, and it will look really good, or you could spend the money on a hyperbaric chamber and
feel good,
feel amazing, and age slower.
Absolutely. And it really comes to this point of whether we have to take responsibility for our health. And this responsibility, part of it lies with how we spend our money. People are spending $5 a day on Starbucks. If you it's $150 a month, and like whatever it is a year.
Right.
Is it good for you? Probably not, because it has a lot of calories and dairy and sugar and whatnot. Hyperbarics is really good for you. I've heard people, saving or maybe getting like a big bonus at work and then spending it on hyperbaric chamber. It depends on the priorities. Of course, you need to learn about it, and of course, you need to try it. But once you feel the amazing benefits, it's a good idea to think about getting one for your home. And maybe if that is not an option at the moment for whatever reason, go to the clinic and get serious of the treatments. That's going to be cheaper than getting a chamber for a home use. But eventually, it's a lot more economical to get it for home than going back to clinic and keep getting treatment after treatment.
Is there a specific brand that we should be looking for if you're interested in buying one for home?
A lot of brands are gonna kill me now, but I'll say it. I usually don't mention brands, but I use OxyHealth, and there are several reasons why I use OxyHealth. First of all, they have perfect safety record. They've been on the market for more than 25 years. They've sold more chambers than any other company. And now I'm talking about chambers for home use, right? I'm not talking about the ones, because if we get into heavy hospital type of chambers, that's a different story, right? I'm just talking about this kind of chambers. Plus the materials. You should always ask, what materials is this chamber made of? That's extremely important. And I know with OxyHealth, the material is not toxic, because what happens once it starts to inflate, the material starts to stretch. And when material stretches, it starts to emit if there's toxins in the material itself, you're going to be breathing this toxic stuff.
Yeah, it's deteriorating.
It defeats the purpose. Like, what are you trying to do there? Getting healthy or getting sick? So for me, that's important. And also the safety record. The actual idea that the chamber that was first produced over 25 years ago is still being used. So, I mean, you buy it for life, and then, it's there. So that's my personal preference, and it works for me, and it works for my patients.
That's amazing. Well, I got to say thank you so much for
Thank
coming and
you,
hanging out
Kia.
with us, Dr. Masha. This has been so informative. I've learned so much more, and I hope it benefits someone out there that they get to experience it and it can change their life for the better. So I want to say thank you for all the work you're doing in this field and your great podcast that everyone should listen to. And thank you so much for being our guest today.
It's
Kia, thank
benefited
you.
me.
Thank you,
It's
Simon.
benefited me, Dr. Masha. I'll tell you that now.
Yeah. Are you guys convinced now to go and try hyperbaric
Yeah.
treatment? Yeah.
I'm sold. I am
You're so
1,000% sold.
I'm actually going to Google Oxy. What was it?
Oxy Health, as in health.
Oxy Health. I should write it down. I was tempted to Google where we was watching Oxy Health.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And just
Thank you, Kia.
and to tie it all in, I mean, if you look at the component of health and adding and diet, right? And how we were talking about in the beginning of looking at your diet, and that's the foundation of your health. And then you can, and your supplementation, and then you can add this in as sort of like not a supplement that you eat, but something you can do for your body. Like you supplement your healthy diet and an exercise routine with more oxygen, in your plasma, then I think that's a recipe for living a really good quality life because
Absolutely.
we deserve that. We all deserve
Absolutely.
that.
That's really well put, Kia. I think, yeah, because that's a great summary. Oxygen is nutrient. We need more of it, and we should get it. It's available. It's there. Why not?
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm going to put
Thank
you
you.
in the green room. If you have time to stick around for a proper goodbye, we'll wrap the show and we'll meet you there. If not, I understand, and I will catch up with you later. Thank you again. Simon, you want to say anything else to Dr. Masha?
Thanks a lot. And I've written down Oxy Health, and I shall be looking on the internet to see which is the cheapest, most affordable one when I get a house.
Let me know if you have any questions. I'm
Okay,
here to
then I
answer.
will do.
Okay, thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
Bye.
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 Mm.
Wow, Simon, I learned so much. Did you?
Yeah, very, very informative. It's great. It's great. It's something that you at least have to try once.
Mhm.
If you're, even if you're a bit claustrophobic or a bit hesitant, you pay your 50 euros or whatever it is, go and try it and see how you feel. But I know I won't be eating a full meal before I get in there anyway.
Well, I will tell you this. I know, like, I've had a bunch of surgeries, right? And I always feel better when they put the oxygen in my nose through the nose cannula. And I feel better just breathing the oxygen in that way. And I also happen to know when I lived in Miami, there was like oxygen bars that you could go to. So we're onto this thing where oxygen is good for you, even better than just like breathing air, right? So getting this pure oxygen. But imagine, I'm just thinking of getting my whole body in there and then it's pressurized and all of that. I just imagine it must be amazing, and you would see the results of that over time. So I'm definitely gonna try it. I'm all in on this one, and I will report back how I feel after it's all said and done.
You could do a vlog about it. You getting in when you're in there and afterwards.
Yeah, I should do. I'm putting it on my Hot Topics Live Instagram page because you know that you can follow me on Instagram at Hot Topics. Actually, you can follow me on Instagram at a bunch of places. I'm all over the place on Instagram at Creativity, at Hot Topics the podcast, at the Female Veterans Podcast. I am the host of the Female Veterans Podcast too, and you are also on Instagram, right, Simon?
Yes, I am. It's Taxi Chronicles UK because somebody actually took the name Taxi Chronicles for my Instagram. But I'm on Spotify. I'm on YouTube. I'm on all the major platforms there, and it's Taxi Chronicles. And we just talk about. I just interview people when they get in a taxi and they share their gift, just like Dr. Masha did, where she just shares her gift about what she's learned in life, and it's very useful, and hopefully it'll be useful to you. I've got over 500 episodes, so it should be more than entertaining. There should be something out there for your audience that they can learn and enhance their life.
And you have another show, right?
Oh yeah, the Africa Investor Stories. I put it on pause, but there are episodes out there. It's just generally about people from around the world who've invested in Africa like I had, and just about their experience, whether good or bad, or what they've learned, or why you invest in Africa in the first place. Because we all have invested in Africa. We all have iPhones, we have various different things, and they may not be manufactured or designed in Africa, but the materials certainly do start there. So when you can, when you consider that, you're investing in Africa, whether you like it or not, and it's got the top 5 fastest growing economies in the country, along with in the world, along with the fastest growing population on the planet. So there's much stories to be told.
Amazing. And one more show, right? You're like me, you do a lot of things like this
Oh,
one.
yes. I can't think. We do a Podcasters Unleashed. Thank you for remind me. The other co-host will crucify me otherwise. We do the Podcasters Unleashed, which is 6 of us as podcasters from around the world. There's somebody from America, someone from Canada, somebody from Iran, someone from London, someone from France, Egypt. Yeah, it's really global. And we just talk about current affairs. And it's very interesting because everybody is diverse and they're all coming from a different aspects and different experiences in life. And we every Monday at 7 p.m. British Standard Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 9 p.m. East African Time. And it's interesting. And you, the audience, can join in. You can have your say, put it in the comments. We're live on YouTube and Facebook at the same time. And we always read out all the comments. So you're in the audience, but you're also on the show, giving your opinion. And there's quite a few debates, passionate, emotional, but it's always very interesting. And last week we discussed about Afghanistan and the big move out and how that went down. And it was very interesting. There's patriotism and there's honesty and there's reality. And amongst other things.
Well said. That is very well said, because you're seeing a lot of that going around and a lot of people with a lot of opinions and a lot of us veterans that definitely feel some type of way. I'll just say. Yeah. So I'm sure that was an excellent episode. I am going to watch the replay like you can do of this show on YouTube or on my Facebook page. I'm new on YouTube, so go and check me out. Subscribe, number 1, put a like on some episodes. There's tons of topics. You can probably find something that you like. And if you have trouble finding me, just type in Hot Topics Live and my name, Kia, and you'll see my channel pop up and you can watch. And if you watch live, you can join in. If you watch the replay, you can still comment and send me some love. And if you watch this full episode, you are now part of our soul family, our soul tribe. And so definitely put a like on there, subscribe, and tune in, because we have lots of great episodes coming up. Again, I'm live again next week, so you can see me again with another amazing co-host. I want to say thank you, Simon, for being my co-host today. It's always a pleasure to have you with me, asking questions. You have great questions and giving the male perspective.
It's been a pleasure as always, and I'm glad and honored that you asked me back.
Well, stay tuned, because I'm sure it will happen again. But thank you for joining, and you can see Hot Topics again next week. I think we are going to be we're either on Wednesdays or Thursdays, so tune in for that. And well, have an amazing rest of your week. I appreciate you for watching. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.